After my emergency C-section, I couldn't walk without help. My husband promised he'd take care of everything. But when I asked him to hold the baby while I showered for the first time in 4 days, he snapped, "You're not the only one who's tired." I sat on the bathroom floor, bleeding and crying, listening to him laugh in the other room with his mother. When I came out, she said, "Maybe you're just not cut out for motherhood." That night, I held my baby and whispered, "We deserve better." 3 months later, we left while they slept. 3 months ago, I was sitting on the cold tile floor of our bathroom, bleeding, shaking, and crying while my husband and his mother laughed in the living room. I had just asked him to hold our newborn baby so I could shower for the first time in 4 days. That moment changed everything for me. Let me back up. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I gave birth to my daughter Abby after an emergency C-section. The labor was long and hard. I was in pain for hours before the doctors decided it wasn't safe to keep going naturally. The surgery was terrifying. I was awake but numb, and I could feel the tugging and pressure as they pulled her out of me. I remember asking if she was okay before I even saw her. When they told me she was, I sobbed with relief. I could barely move after. I had a long incision, and every movement felt like my body was splitting open. Just standing up made my head spin. My legs were weak, and I needed help to get to the bathroom. The nurses were kind. They told me to rest as much as I could and not to lift anything heavier than the baby. My husband Nate stayed in the hospital room the first 2 nights. He kept saying how proud he was of me. How strong I was. He told me not to worry about anything when we got home. Just heal. "I got this," he said. He looked so sincere. I believed him. The truth showed up fast. We got home, and everything changed. Nate acted like the hard part was over. He stopped helping the second we walked in the door. His mom, Doreen, had driven in from Owensboro to stay with us for support. Instead, she took over the living room, turned on her TV shows, and judged everything I did. She had opinions about everything: how I held Abby, how often I fed her, what I ate, how I looked. "You still look about 6 months pregnant," she said once, just days after I gave birth. Nate didn't defend me. He laughed. Every time. At first, I thought maybe he was just overwhelmed. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I figured maybe he just didn't know how to help. So I asked. I told him clearly what I needed. Could he change Abby's diaper while I rested for 5 minutes? Could he bring me a sandwich while I breastfed for the 4th time in 3 hours? Could he help with the dishes? Most of the time, I got a sigh. A groan. Or, "I'll do it later." Later never came. By week 2, I was running on almost no sleep. Abby had colic and cried for hours. I was sore, leaking milk, and barely eating. Nate still slept through her cries. He'd throw a pillow over his head. I started sleeping in the nursery chair, holding her against my chest because it was the only way she'd calm down. My incision burned constantly. Then came the breaking point. It was a Thursday. I hadn't showered in 4 days. I stank. I felt disgusting. My hair was greasy, and I still hadn't been able to change the bloody pads in peace without someone banging on the door. So I walked into the living room. Nate was on the couch eating chips, watching YouTube with Doreen. Abby was crying in her bassinet nearby. I stood there and asked, "Can you hold her for 10 minutes so I can shower?" He didn't even look at me. Just waved me off. "You're not the only one who's tired," he said, with that sarcastic tone I used to think was just part of his humor. I just stood there. I didn't even know what to say. I felt invisible. I turned around and went into the bathroom. The water was already on when I got in, but my legs gave out before I made it to the tub. I slid down the wall and sat there, naked, bleeding, holding my stomach, sobbing. I could hear them laughing through the door. Not once did he check on me. When I finally dragged myself up and stepped out of the bathroom, Doreen looked at me like I was pathetic. She shook her head and said, "Maybe you're just not cut out for motherhood." That night, I sat in the nursery with Abby asleep in my arms, and I whispered to her, "We deserve better." I didn't know what I meant yet. But it was the start of something. I started planning. After that night, I stopped talking to Nate unless I had to. I still cooked, cleaned, fed Abby, and took care of everything, but I said less and less. I didn't have the energy to argue. I just watched. I watched how he scrolled on his phone for hours. How he went out with his friends and came back smelling like weed and beer. How Doreen acted like the queen of the house, barking orders like I worked for her. But I wasn't wasting time. I used the nights Abby wouldn't sleep to plan. Every time I was up feeding her at 2 a.m. I'd scroll through local forums and legal threads on my phone. I looked up women's shelters. I looked into financial aid. I made a burner email. I even started recording audio clips on my phone when Nate or his mom got nasty. I reached out to a women's center in downtown Louisville. A woman named Jasmine called me back. She was kind, patient. She didn't rush me. She said when I was ready, they'd help me leave safely. I wasn't ready yet. Not until I had something to show in court. Something real. So I kept collecting. I took pictures of the blood stains on my clothes, the bruises on my legs from falling in the bathroom, the dishes piled high because Nate refused to help. I got Abby's pediatrician to make notes about my postpartum condition and the stress at home. I backed everything up in the cloud. Then one day, I found out the real reason Nate was gone so much. He left his laptop open. He never did that. He was upstairs playing video games, and I was rocking Abby in the living room. His screen lit up with a message from some girl on Facebook. I knew that name. Jessica. She was his friend from work. The messages were all there. He'd been seeing her for months, even before I gave birth. Telling her how crazy I was. How needy. He told her he felt trapped and that I was using the baby to control him. I read every line with shaking hands. He sent her pictures of himself holding Abby, like he was some proud, involved dad. I wanted to scream. That night, I said nothing. I fed Abby, rocked her to sleep, then went into the kitchen and packed one of her diaper bags. Just one. Enough to grab and go if I had to. I hid it behind the washer in the laundry room. A few days later, Jasmine sent me a message. She had found temporary housing for us. A small apartment managed by a nonprofit. No rent for 6 months. They'd help with food, clothes, even legal help if I wanted to file for custody. I waited 2 more weeks. Doreen was getting nastier. One day she called Abby a spoiled little brat. I nearly snapped. Nate laughed, like it was a joke. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, I made a copy of Nate's messages to Jessica and sent them to myself. I printed them at the library the next day while I told Nate I was running to Walgreens. I also printed a timeline of everything that had happened since Abby's birth, every insult, every refusal to help, every injury. I made a folder. And then, one night around 3 a.m., when Nate and Doreen were asleep and the house was quiet, I picked up Abby, took the diaper bag from the laundry room, and left. No note. No text. Just silence. I walked down the street with my daughter pressed to my chest and called Jasmine from a payphone at the gas station. She picked us up 10 minutes later. We drove away as the sky started to lighten. We stayed in the safe apartment for a few weeks. It was small, just 1 bedroom with a fold-out couch, but it was clean. Quiet. No judgment. Jasmine helped me sign up for state assistance and pointed me toward a lawyer who took cases like mine pro bono. Her name was Carla, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. She said what Nate had done wasn't just neglect, it was emotional abuse. And the more I told her, the more serious she looked. She asked if I wanted to file for full custody. I said yes. Without blinking. I expected Nate to come looking for us. He didn't. Not for a full week. Then I got the first text, "Where the hell are you?" Then, "You took my kid? Are you out of your damn mind?" Then, "You better get back here or I'm calling the cops." I didn't reply. 2 days later, I got served. Not custody papers, but a petition from Nate, filed through some cheap attorney, accusing me of kidnapping Abby. He claimed I was mentally unstable, that I'd run off in the night, and that I'd refused to let him see his child. I handed the papers to Carla, shaking. She barely blinked. "We've got them beat," she said. "Let him dig." And dig he did. The next few weeks were hell. I had to hand over everything, my notes, my medical records, even photos of the bruises. I sat through meetings where Carla went line by line through his lies, matching them to the truth. She got statements from nurses at the hospital. From Abby's pediatrician. Even Jasmine wrote a formal report about my condition when I came to the shelter. Then came the biggest twist of all. Doreen filed her own petition. She claimed she should have visitation rights. She painted herself as the stable caregiver while I was erratic and hostile. I couldn't believe it. The woman who told me I wasn't cut out for motherhood was now trying to take part of my baby's life. Carla said not to panic. "This is common. They think they can scare you into backing down." But I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. We gathered everything. The audio recordings where Doreen criticized me while Nate laughed. The screenshots of him telling Jessica he wished I'd just disappear. The video of me crying on the floor that I'd filmed by accident one night when I dropped my phone while trying to get up. Everything went in the file. The court date was set for June. I was terrified, but I was ready. Then, just weeks before the hearing, another bomb dropped. Jessica reached out to me. She messaged me on Facebook from a new account and said she was done with Nate. She said he lied to her too. That he told her we were already separated, that I was using the baby to hurt him. But once I left and he got serious about moving her in, she saw a different side of him. "He's not just lazy," she wrote. "He's scary. Controlling. I think you should know what he said about Abby." My blood went cold. I met her in a coffee shop. She showed me texts I'd never seen. One where he said, "Sometimes I wish I never had that kid. She ruined my life." Another where he joked about leaving her in a Walmart parking lot to teach her mom a lesson. I forwarded everything to Carla. We had more than enough. Still no ending yet. But the fire was lit. I wasn't just walking away anymore. I was going to destroy the image of Dad of the Year he tried to sell to the world. The courtroom smelled like cold coffee and old carpet. I sat in a stiff chair, holding a folder of every ugly truth I'd collected over 3 months. Carla sat beside me, calm as ever, her notes perfectly organized. Nate came in wearing a button-up shirt like he was playing a part. Doreen sat behind him, arms folded, glaring like I'd stolen something from her. He didn't look at me once. The judge was a woman. Late 40s, sharp voice. She didn't waste time. Nate's lawyer went first. He talked about how Nate was blindsided by my departure. He painted a picture of a stressed new father, overwhelmed but trying. He said Nate begged me to go to therapy. Said I isolated myself. That I vanished with Abby without notice and that I was denying a father his right to raise his child. Then it was our turn. Carla didn't argue. She presented. She laid out every piece, my hospital records. The audio of Doreen telling me I wasn't cut out for motherhood. The photos of bruises. The texts from Nate to Jessica. Jessica's own signed statement. Then she paused and looked at me. I stood up. I told the judge what I told Abby that night, how I whispered, "We deserve better." I told her about the bleeding, the shaking, the crying on the floor. I told her about Doreen's insults, Nate's laughs, the night he said, "You're not the only one who's tired," when I couldn't stand up straight. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just told the truth. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then Nate made the biggest mistake of all. He stood up, ignored his lawyer, and started yelling. She's exaggerating. She's not even telling the full story. Ask her how she left in the middle of the night like a lunatic. Ask her. The judge didn't flinch. She waited until he was done. Then she looked straight at him and said, "Mr. Walsh, sit down." She ruled that day. Full custody to me. No visitation for now. Supervised meetings would be considered after a full psychological evaluation. And only if Abby wanted it later. Doreen's petition? Dismissed. The judge called her presence damaging and disruptive. Outside the courtroom, Doreen tried to speak to me. I didn't even stop walking. She stood there yelling after me while Nate sat on the bench with his head in his hands. I didn't look back. It's been 8 months since that day. Abby is growing fast. She's smiling now. Laughing. Learning to walk. We still live in that tiny apartment, but it feels like home. I work part-time at a daycare while studying online. The women at the center became my second family. And I'm stronger now. More than I ever thought I could be. Was I perfect? No. I waited too long. I let things slide I shouldn't have. I wanted to believe the man I married would come through. But I learned. And when I whispered to Abby, "We deserve better," I meant it. Now we have it. And Nate? He's back on Facebook posting quotes about loyalty and real men being silenced. No one's buying it. Jessica posted screenshots of his texts. He tried to sue her. Lost. He keeps messaging me. I don't respond. He lost us the second he laughed through that door while I bled on the bathroom floor. You don't come back from that. Not ever.